The thing with Mayank Yadav that I really like, and the injuries, we're just going to have to see how that goes. But the thing I really like is it's not one dimension.
He's not Umran Malik, is he?
Yeah, well, Umran Malik or Mark Wood, right?
I do have to agree a bit with Crunk in that when I saw him for the first time, I was like, wow, I am genuinely excited to watch this guy. Whereas I don't get that very often from Pacers. No, I didn't feel like that about Josh Hull when I saw him play. Who's playing test matches.
Yadav, the Josh Hull of England, of India.
But if he is fit, kind like India are a bit of a cheat code because that's not fair, that attack, because they actually have spinners. They've already got the head and shoulders best bowler in the world. And if you add in a fit Mayank Yadav, who is as good as that guy that turned up and played a couple of times in the IPL, they don't lose. They can't lose to anyone with that attack.
Yeah, I think he's a really, really fascinating player. I mean, when you say he's the most talented bowler he's seen, like, there's not that much difference between him and Pat Cummins when Pat Cummins came on the scene. Pat Cummins was bowling, 150, 155 outswing and is taller than Mayank Yadav and probably has a higher release. So the Pat Cummins we see now is, dare I say it, kind of boring, right? Like consistent and accurate and doesn't swing it and, isn't that kind of player. But if you think back to what Pat Cummins was in that first test match in South Africa, you were seeing literally very similar to Mayank Yadav. And of course, we then didn't see Pat Cummins for 6 years. The next time I saw Pat Cummins, I interviewed him at the SCG, and he'd just come off a machine, Rob, that allows you to run without putting any weight on your body. It's like, I don't know, some sort of moon-like machine. So you do the cardio, but you don't actually put any impact on. And I was like,
it's called a swimming pool.
No, that's what they do to horses. But yeah, it's a bit like that. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, we're never going to see this dude again. Like if he's 22 years old and the only way for him to do cardio is with a machine that Cricket New South Wales or Cricket Australia had to like ship in from overseas, it's not likely. And to be honest, I think he missed 6 years of international cricket and Australia had 4 prime ministers. So it was a big stint out of the game at that point. And when he came back, he wasn't that kind of bowler anymore. Right, like he had changed, and then obviously the wobble ball played a big part and everything else. So you can, Crunk, get very excited about a young bowler, and then a couple of years in, that bowler is very different. I mean, it's not just bowlers, of course. Remember, David Warner, when we first saw him, was flat batting Dale Steyn back over his head.
Yeah, good.
And when was the last time that David Warner could play a shot? Like David Warner, if you watched a video of that, would get a pain in his shoulder now, right? Like age wearies you and everything else. The thing with Mayank Yadav that I really like, and the injuries, we're just going to have to see how that goes. But the thing I really like is it's not one dimension.
He's not Umran Malik, is he?
Yeah, well, Umran Malik or Mark Wood, right? Those are two one-dimensional players. If they are not bowling at 90 miles an hour, like what is the point in them ever being in a cricket team? Because I look at Mayank Yadav and I'm like, do you know what? He's accurate, especially for someone of his pace, and he can move the ball. There's a couple of different parts to him, right? So if something falls off, and hopefully not literally, because that would be leprosy or something, or he's been or he's been dismembered. I don't understand how I got into this analogy, but if something falls off from him as a bowler, I think he has other things to build on. Whereas if you look at that with some of those other, Umran Malik, as you just said, is a perfect example of, well, he's not accurate. He doesn't really move the ball sideways, and he doesn't seem to understand what he's doing. The little bit that we're seeing in Mayank Yadav at the moment, he does understand all those things.
Because what happens, and TV is mainly the biggest guilty party in this, is when somebody comes along who is fast, everybody gets very excited, and they look at speed guns and they don't look at anything else. And speed guns are obviously extremely doctored anyway. But when Umran Malik came along, you're like, bloody hell, that is genuinely really, really fast. And then fast forward 4 games, you're like, yeah, but it's really, really fast in the slot every single time. And it's like his power play numbers are abominable, Umran Malik. Like he turns up and he goes at 12 and over in the power play consistently. And whenever he gets an over in the power play, it's just scrambling as hard as you can to get on overs and back boundary every single ball. Because it's really, really fast. But how good are good players at really, really fast balls in the slot? The ones that are going to hit them directly between the eyes or in the neck, they're the ones they don't like. And Malik didn't work it out. Whereas Mayank is a totally different guy. Like he's a completely different cricketer. So you have Shamar Joseph, who put it together in a test match against Australia and won a test match nearly by himself, when he had a bad foot or whatever, and you're like, that is incredible and it's exciting, and how good is he? He goes to T20 with no experience of bowling with a white ball, and has to suddenly go, right, here's the IPL, let's see how you get on. It's a totally different ball game, like literally, and he got found out in about 5 minutes. But they didn't persevere with him. KKR, wasn't it? Didn't persevere with him, just like immediately, see you later, like this is the IPL, you can't bowl like that. But three very different, yet all very interesting cases there. Mayank Yadav is the one that you think, blimey, he could be anything, but it doesn't look good for his long-term prospects, and he might have to come back. I mean, but it's not like he had his action knackered like England tried to do with Jimmy Anderson, for example, where he had to have a load of time out of the game because his team tried to break him in half. We've not had that. I think it just looks like he's unlucky, but he's only 22, Mayank Yadav. They do have time to, do what they need to do with him. But what may happen, and Pakistan do this with their guys, is they go, well, we've got this great commodity, let's bowl him all the time, and then he breaks and we never see him again. And we don't want that to happen. So don't do that, please.
No. Crunk said, Cummins was not as fast as Mayank. I've seen the clips. He was more 145-ish, not 155. He was 155 when he was 18, 19. He was absolutely lightning. When the first time I saw him, I think might have even been live. I was just like, I cannot believe this guy is bowling the way that Pat Cummins does. He bowls 145 now, Crunk, and I promise you, if you talk to Pat Cummins, he'd say he's nowhere near the pace that he used to be. He bowled 145 in the last IPL. Way quicker when he was young.
Cummins is a guy that is top 3 test bowlers in the world right now, I would say, Cummins. Yeah. But until very recently, where he's worked out that he's a very limited white ball bowler, particularly T20 bowler, I think that is because he bowls like he was the guy that had the massive pace in his locker, the 155. And he actually bowls it near a 140, and he gets carted all the time. So he is somebody that he was like, well, I'm going to be really good as a power play bowler. And again, KKR spent all the money. And then SRH, I'm going to be really, really good as a power play bowler. And he wasn't. And he was like, well, maybe I'm the guy. And he's kind of worked it out now. But the amount of cash that he got for being the guy that could bowl 155 when he was bowling 140 is very different. Pretty rubbish. I don't think he bowled.
He hadn't bowled 155. I think when he first came back, so what would he have been, 24, 25, he could still get up to that speed if he needed to very occasionally. And I saw some very fast spells. But he hasn't bowled anywhere near 155 certainly in the last, 6, 7, 8 years. And I think you're right. It's quite interesting when you think about him. He's basically developed into a very, very accurate 88 mile an hour seamer, right? Who can occasionally ramp up slightly. And that was in red ball cricket. And in white ball cricket, he never developed any extra skills for a long period of time, partially because he didn't have to. But the point is that Crunk, people were as excited about Pat Cummins, and now we see Pat Cummins as almost a very good stock bowler. But like, if you had a choice of watching, I mean, you named it before. If you had a choice of watching Rabada or Bumrah or Cummins, like you're from an entertainment point of view, you're always going to pick the other two over Cummins. Now that was not the case back in No,
it wasn't. I remember
2012
watching
or whatever it was when he started.
I remember watching Bumrah's first couple of games in the IPL. And it wasn't like that. His name was the funny thing for me, because in Thundercats they had Mumrah, and so I was just shouting Bumrah all the time, and that's what I remember about him starting. It wasn't that and yes, his action is very interesting, Bumrah, but it wasn't like, oh my god, this is the guy. And it was for Cummins. To be fair, Rabada in Test, when I first saw him in Test matches, that was very exciting. You're like, bloody hell, they found somebody here, because he was awesome. He was instantly really, really good. But so was Cummins. It took Bumrah some time, didn't it, to get good? But Cummins was like, and also Cummins can bat.